I'm a madman, I'm a crazy person. I'm jumping off the caboose while the train is burning. I hope your brain is learning. I'm giving you information.
What's going on, everybody? This is Tony from Strictly Better MTG, coming to you tonight with the Dragon Tempest combo. There's been a lot of speculation on this, and I've been trying to work on this for a while. Here's my take on it. We're going Temur mid-range for this build. It's going to be 12 mana dorks. We've got 4 copies of Elvish Mystic, 4 copies of Rattleclaw Mystic, 4 copies of Sylvan Caryatid, 4 copies of Dragon Fodder, little extra creature insurance to make sure we've got enough targets for the Descent of the Dragons part of the combo. We've got 4 copies of Dragon Tempest, 4 copies of Descent of the Dragons. They're the combo pieces. We want to consistently get those in our hand. After that, we've got 4 copies of Negate, 4 copies of Anticipate, and 4 copies of Sarkhan Unbroken. I started off running Commune with the Gods and went with Anticipate because the big problem with Commune is you have to reveal cards and they go to your graveyard, and that ended up being a major problem for us. So instead, Anticipate. Just works a little better. We ended up running 4 copies of Negate because we have to be protected against sweepers, as well as late game burn in the aggro matchups, mostly mono red or red white, or even a Tarko for that matter. After that, we've got our land base coming in with 2 Mana Confluence, 3 Yavimaya Coast, 3 Shivan Reef, 3 Temple of Abandon, 3 Temple of Mystery, 4 Wooded Foothills, 3 Forest, and 3 Mountain. I didn't want to run 4 Mana Confluence because the life drain effect from that is a little too heavy, but we still need some lands that will produce a mana of any color we need in any given situation. So I ended up having to leave 2 of them in. So let's move on to the sideboard where things get really crazy because we've got a Chaos board. And that's going to be 4 Thunderbreak Regent, 2 Icefall Regent, 2 Stormbreath Dragon, a lot of dragons if you can't tell in this deck. It's basically Temur dragons almost, combo or no. Then we've got 4 copies of Savage Knuckleblade and 3 copies of Crater's Claws. So 4 copies of Savage Knuckleblade, just great 3 mana cost threat. We can play him fairly early, especially with all our mana dorks and whatnot. We can always do it efficiently. We can usually give him haste. Just really helps us out against mid-range and control matchups where we need to try and hit him really quick and really hard. On top of that, we've got the Thunderbreak Regent, which is going to protect all the dragons we end up having, either from Sarkhan or Descent, either way. On top of that, we get Icefall Regent, which will keep those Siege Rhinos tapped down and those Ojutais. And then Stormbreath, which will block Siege Rhino and Ojutai all day long. Again, 2 of the bigger threats. We can usually deal with aggro okay. Usually have a really good game against other mid-range decks because we're trying to meet them on that sort of 3 to 5 turn base. And still a really good game against control just because of those 4 copies of Negate. Since we have those 4 copies, we can protect the things that we want to protect and make sure those spells get through, like Descent of the Dragons in Game 1, or Sarkhan Unbroken, Game 1, Game 2, anytime, along with any of our other things. After that, those 3 copies of Crater's Claw, it's never a problem for us to meet the Ferocious requirement for that 2 damage base, so I figured why not. If we're gonna need those burn spells sooner or later to help us close out the game against mid-range, control, even other aggro decks. It just helps phenomenally. It is an invaluable spell to help us out and help close the game, sort of. So let's go ahead and throw our ratings up there. We've got a fairly high power rating, mostly because of the cards on the board. Main board, all the power cards we have are really just Sarkhan Unbroken. Everything else is fairly low power. Speed, we've got a 6. That may seem a little low because we've got 12 mana dorks, plus Sarkhan Unbroken helps with a little bit of mana ram from his +1 ability, but Against mid-range and control, we still end up playing rather slowly against them because we're trying to establish a little bit of a board presence and then have the combo fire off in game 1 or game 2/3. We're boarding out most of the combo pieces and just having threat after threat after threat thrown at them. So speed is relatively low considering those 12 mana dorks. And the synergy, I'm giving us a 6 because while the deck doesn't seem very synergistic at first glance, Sarkin and Broken has so much synergy with Dragon Tempest, as well as having 8 more dragons in the board that we're going to bring in. You just have synergy there. It doesn't seem like it at first, but when you play it, maybe just playtesting, proxy it up and playtest it like I have, you'll see there's so much good synergy going on here. After that, we've got our versatility at 6. Not the most versatile deck, mostly because it doesn't take on everything very well game 1. We can still pull off wins just fine on game 1 if they don't see the combo coming. But it does have problems with that. An experienced player is going to see you play that Dragon Tempest and go, oh, this guy's a casual player trying to play this combo. Well, depending on the level of your deck, and I tried to make this as top tier as I possibly could, whether they know you're playing the combo or not will not be such a big advantage for them anymore. Especially in game 2 and game 3. Boarding out most of the combo there, and yeah, they don't see it coming. After that, we've got our resiliency at 5, just because sweepers can be a huge problem for us. End Hostilities, Crux of Fate, Perilous Vault, Bile-Blight, Drown in Sorrow, all those can take out the majority of our mana dorks, and the Dragon Fodder tokens, which kills that Descent of the Dragons combo there. But you can still come back from it, you can still pull it off, so we're still kind of resilient just because we have so many copies of each of these necessary spells. Not only that, we've got 4 Negate to help protect us from those sweeper effects, so we don't lose as often as they would like us to them. On our offense rating, I gave us a really high offense rating because we are trying to be offensive from turn 2 on. You know, swinging with Elvish Mystic and Rattleclaw Mystic is the thing. You can do it. It's as long as they're not going to die, there's no problem swinging in with them. Then on top of that, Dragon Fodder tokens, swing in with them. You get 4/4 flyers off Sarkin and Broken. And with Dragon Tempest and Descent of the Dragons, all our guys that come in from Descent of the Dragons are gonna have haste, plus dealing that damage from Dragon Tempest. It's really offensive there. Our defensive rating is a 4. The only reason I even gave us a 4 is because we have those 4 copies of Negate. Otherwise, it probably would have been a 2. None of our plays, even after sideboarding, are very defensive. Everything we do is mostly offensive. In the way of protecting ourselves for the defense front, we've got Storm Breath, which again deals with Ojutai and blocking, as well as Icefall, which can tap it down and keep it tapped. That helps, but there's just not a whole lot of defense. There's not much removal or anything going on, so it can be sort of problematic there. Mostly against aggro matchups, which against aggro matchups, Dragon Fodder becomes invaluable because you've got 1/1 tokens to chump block their Goblin Rival Masters and their, what's the thing I'm thinking of? Monastery Mentor and Secret of the Way. That's the word. That was the big one. That's one of the most common things for these aggro builds nowadays. After that, we get our game 1 rating at 6. I gave it a 6 because it's fairly strong game 1. You can keep the combo maybe in your hand and just try and play out into it all at once, very slowly, or if you're lucky you can play it out very quickly, which is what we're trying to do, and they just don't have enough time to react and deal with it. And you can usually handle most of your matchups fairly well. Aggro is possibly the biggest one just because we don't have removal. but we have plenty of chump blockers and things like that to help us survive and make it through, and we can pull it off. Postboard, I gave us a 7 because Game 2 and Game 3, we are wide open. We're an aggressive mid-range build then, and we're just throwing threats on threats on threats on threats on threats. We just can't stop playing them, and they will never... They usually haven't been able to deal with all the threats that we can throw at them. Between Sarkin and Broken and Savage Knuckleblade and the Thunder Breaks, we just can overrun them. As for our consistency at 8, the deck has always been consistent. Postboard, Game 1, doesn't matter. You're always doing exactly what the deck is meant to do, which is throw up mana dorks and play offensive spells, either in the form of the combo or postboard throwing out big dragons and swinging over. Not only that, you got the Savage Knuckleblade again. I love this card, and it's only about 80 or 90 cents on TCG Player, so that's probably one of the most budgeted cards in the deck, and it's really good. I really like that card. So, if y'all want to discuss this deck anymore, if y'all have different ideas on ways to tune it, anything else y'all want to discuss, maybe different board situations there, or y'all just want to talk about how you board for different matchups and whatnot, please feel free to let me know. Again, this isn't the most budget deck. You could probably find a way to build this deck budgetedly, but it will not be as consistent or as effective based on the test results I've seen and gotten from it. And on that note, I'm going to work on calling it a night. We got a few things to go over real quick, because we've got Mono Black Reanimator and Red White Heroic coming from Devin, and we've got Blue Black Flyers as a budget build coming from me, and a Infect in Casual or Modern. I'm kind of getting into the decks for Casual and Modern. I'm working on Modern, I'm doing the research, just give me a little more time and you guys can start requesting Modern decks, and I will be happy to do those, because those are really fun with all the crazy combos and interactions that we have from all those spell selections. Not as much as Casual, but still such a huge field of spells to pick from. So feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let us know you support us, and leave those deck requests and suggestions for this deck down there in those comments and whatnot. Let us know how you feel. Let us know what's going on. And we'll catch you next time. This is Tony from Strictly Better MTG, and I'm signing off. You folks have a good night.